Okay, so this is my second video in demonstrating contested territories, and this was done on a city level 40 account, and I'm just highlighting a couple of rounds 122, 23, and 24 that I played today. I actually reached round 129, but lost on 129, but I didn't record all the way up to there, or else I would have used some of those videos of those rounds. So, this is to give people an idea of the difficulty that you get to at higher levels, and the speed of blimps and DDTs. So, kind of your core defense here is mostly going to be the temples of the Monkey God or Temple of the Vengeful Monkey God. As for sacrifices, you're going to want to have 30,000 buy value of either bombs or mortars, and 30,000 of glue gunners, and 30,000 of ice towers, and 30,000 of apprentices, and 30,000 of any other tower. Now, on this map, ice towers and apprentices are banned, so that limits, how much damage our temples can deal. But you can see they're still fairly powerful. Some of the other towers you're going to want to use are snipers. You'll want the Cripple Moab upgrade, which is the tier 4 left path. You'll also want sabotage supply lines, which is the ninja tier 4 right path for the ability. You'll want villages. You'll want both tier 4s on left and right path. You'll want 1 or 2 on the left path, the high energy beacon, to give yourself better cooldowns on your Moab assassins and your spike storms, and the right path, the call to arms, for speeding up your temples and spike factories if you can get them all underneath there. So let's see, is that it? The Moab Assassin, you'll want those. I find they're very helpful if you're trying to get to the absolute highest possible round you can. They're especially helpful for taking out DDTs. And spike factories, you'll want the tier 4 on the right side, the Spike Storm ability. And I don't know, some people also like using the left tier 4 upgrade, the Spiked Mines, but I haven't used any in my build here. So at this point in the game, I've pretty much have to chain sabotage supply lines, as well as use call to arms and spike storms and Moab assassins, basically all my abilities. And you can see here I'm actually selling them and buying them back so that I can speed up the cooldown time, so I can have all of my abilities right at the beginning of the map. I cut out the boring section of me selling and rebuying the towers there. But you can see here at the beginning of the map I can use those Moab assassins to take out the DDTs, which allows your spike factories to build up a pile of spikes across the whole entire track. Now, DDTs always come in packs of 3, so you can use this to your advantage. If you can count the DDTs, you can kind of figure out when you'll need to use the abilities. And this lets you save your spike storms for later in the round, when you'll have clumps of the ZOMGs coming across the map. So the difficulty really takes a huge turn up, kind of at this point, past 120. with just this build, I can usually get up to about 100, 110 or so without actually having to use any abilities. But after 110, you basically have to be using sabotage supply lines at the start and sometimes throughout the rounds. And then at about 115 or 118, I don't know, somewhere in there, you have to start using some of the other abilities as well. And once you get to about 120, you basically have to chain your abilities as best as possible, because that's the only way that you're going to have your towers deal enough damage to the blimps to actually take them out. And you'll see on the next round, even these abilities here aren't going to be enough. So I actually put in some ground zeros to try and help out, and I've done another trick, which is selling off some of the Moab Maulers mid-round and rebuying them back. That way I can use the ability on DDTs before the cooldown, expires, before they're ready. But that is kind of an advanced technique. You have to have a lot of concentration. You probably have to be using the hotkeys so that you can keep track of everything at once, because if you're doing that and you let your sabotage supply lines run out, then everything's going to take a huge jump across the map, and you'll be in a much worse off position than you were before. So you can see the DDTs have quite a lot of health now, and they move extremely fast. So they're very, very dangerous at this point. But then again, so are the ZOMGs, because they've got a ton of health. And although they don't move as fast, they also come in large clumps. And, on this map, when you don't have the apprentices and ice towers sacrificed to your temples are going to be a bit weaker than they normally could be. So it cuts down on the amount of damage that you can actually deal there. So you can see most of these rounds I've been playing with fast forward off. I do toggle it on here and there, either when I know I'm safe at a point like this at the end of the round, or just to charge up my abilities when I know that nothing else is, nothing really dangerous is coming, so that I have time that I can stall out with it. You see here, I already used a sabotage supply line before the round started, and that's without fast forward. You can see just how far those DDTs are going. They would go even farther, but every single one that's popping is I'm using a Moab Assassin on. They always get one hit, and the Moab Assassin will always target the DDT over the ZOMG, which is very helpful at this point. So if I had not been using the ability on them, they would probably jump at least halfway across the map, if not even farther, before they ended up popping. And so you can see, since I ran out of the Moab Assassin ability, I'm sold off a couple of the bomb towers, and I'm rebuying a couple abilities so that I can keep popping those DDTs early on. But later in this round it becomes quite intense. I've actually had to start buying and selling a ground zero and one of my spike storms, just so I can spam the abilities, because to get past the round I lost on 129, you basically have to have at least one free spike factory that you can just buy, use the ability, sell, buy, use the ability, sell, and just repeating and repeating and repeating. Another thing to note, the high energy beacon that is around the Moab Assassins is only 4-1. It doesn't have camo detection because I didn't want those Moab Assassins to try and attack the DDTs. The DDTs move far too quickly to be able to be hit by those slow bombs, so by the time the bombs get there, there's nothing for them to hit. So by leaving that village at 4-1, they'll always target the ZOMGs. I've also spread out most of my villages to call to arms. That way if I ever use two close together, or even back to back, I don't have to worry about it affecting the same tower and wasting an ability, because it'll generally set the ability for towers on opposite sides of the map. Now there is one other strategy which I'm not using, which I'm probably going to try in one of my other games, maybe tomorrow or sometime, which is using the mortar tower, the pop and awe ability, to stun the blimps for a second or two. And I would probably end up using a buy, use the ability, sell, just so I only need one mortar to do that. That way I can keep as many of the Moab assassins as I can. What I'd done in this game was use the mortars as a sacrifice for my temples. So that's why you see I don't have any available, and there's also none on the field. So at this point, you can see I'm starting to get overrun, and this is about the time when I realized to get much farther, you basically have to spam abilities, because the towers you have just aren't going to cut it. And this is why I stopped recording after this round, because I was just concentrating too much on the rounds themselves, so I didn't want to have to do a commentary while I was playing. But it turned out anyways that the video itself was too long, so I cropped it down and am redoing the commentary now. But as you can see, basically round 130 is just about the limit on this map for contested territories, because of the sacrifices that you can only give your temples. You're limited by their the layer count that the plasma can do. So I actually ended up spending about, I don't know, $800,000 of the in-game cash on just buying towers, using the abilities, and selling them. So if you're really trying to get, every single round you can, you're probably going to want to farm, as much as you can, even when you don't think you need it. So, yeah, that's the where I stopped recording, so thanks for watching.